But the issue wasn't in this situation with my profile. So guys, I do have good credit. I'm not broke, promise. It was with the home that I was trying to buy. And hey, what's up, you guys? It's your boy Juju, and welcome back to another episode of the 1% of Juju podcast, where we teach you the practical steps to live your life like the 1%. Let's dive right into it. I promised you guys a while ago, as you guys can see, I got my hoodie on today. Number one, because it's hoodie season and it's cold in here. And number two, because my barber's busy until Saturday, so I can't get a haircut. But I promised you guys a while ago that I would give you an explanation as of why I was out for so long, why y'all didn't hear of me for so long. So here it is. This is it today. And there's also a lot, because I guess maybe y'all care why I was gone, but the main thing is I thought that this would be great because there's so many teaching pieces, teaching moments that I took away from this that I think that you can take away from. So make sure you tune in. This might be a little bit of a longer one. We'll see. I hope it's not too long, but I hope y'all can get away with something from here. I got a ton of notes here. I was like going through this and I was like, dang. But I want to make sure I go through this whole thing and give you guys as much value as possible in order to make sure that you guys don't repeat some of the mistakes I made and also don't get taken advantage of as you go in this journey, because real estate can be really intense. But yeah, let's go into these takeaways and into the notes I got. But to be honest, I'll start by saying that I think that I got a little cocky in this game. I started this year, this year has been a blessing to me, to be honest. I really went into the year saying, I wanted to do one house flip or buy one more property, and I ended up having 3 really successful house flips this year, and I made good money, and I kind of got to a point where I thought that I was almost invincible, right? I wanted to go into my 4th one. I tried that, and I think that I let my guard down a little bit. A lot of things I would ask a lot of questions about, be very curious. I wasn't doing that anymore. I didn't do that for that deal specifically. And it ended up in the situation it ended up in, which we're going to go into. So get your popcorn ready because this gets interesting. But little story time. Like I mentioned, I did 3 house flips last year or this year, and I wanted to do my 4th one. And at the same time, the landlord at the place I was living at was selling the home because, although I own 3 homes, I don't live in any of them because from a cash flow standpoint, I just thought it made more sense to rent those out, make the money, and then live in a cheaper place. That's just me. That's what I prefer doing. So the landlord where I was living decided to sell the place. So I was in a position where I needed to find a place to live. And also I was looking for my next deal. And that actually brings us into lesson number 1, because I needed a place as soon as possible. And that's really not the way to look for a good real estate deal when you you're in a rush and things like that, because then you lose the leverage. In my opinion, you always need to be in a position where you have the leverage and where you have the ability to walk away from a deal. And I kind of put myself in a position where I was rushing into a deal, and I was like, I absolutely need this, so I'll do whatever, and whatever you need to do in order to close on this deal. So lesson number 1 here, don't ever try to buy real estate in a rush. Always be willing to walk away from a bad deal, because a bad deal, as we're going to learn, can really cripple you, and it could have been a lot worse, and it could cripple you for a very long time. So don't buy real estate in a rush. You're going to lose leverage and, be in a position to walk away. So I visited a few places. There's this one deal I saw that had very little pictures online. So I kind of went to the visit thinking I'm probably not going to purchase this place because it's a little sketchy. Usually when you don't have a lot of pictures, that's a red flag right in itself. But I went to the place. I went to visit the place. And when I saw it in person, I was like, oh, you know what? I can actually get the work done. I was thinking about, some of the flips I just got done, the team that I have behind me, and some of the things that like I have in place already that like I know of where I can save money, right? So when it comes to like buying material, like finding things on sale and things of that nature, that I knew that probably like the average investor would probably just like try to go to like a department store and buy brand new. I was like, okay, I can actually do these renovations for not that much. So this is actually a pretty decent opportunity to purchase this place. This place was so it was someone that was that I started flipping the place, and midway through they decided to not flip the place, that they wanted to put their money somewhere else. Now, my theory is that they wanted to turn it into a duplex, and then they realized like the way it was the layout was like it wasn't really, they weren't going to be able to put in a kitchen and a bathroom downstairs, and I think that that's why they probably wanted to back out of the deal. But all they told me is like they just wanted to put their money somewhere else, and I was like, I'm happy to do the work, and I think that for myself, this actually looks like a pretty decent deal. So I decided to put in an offer. We did a little bit of back and forth on the price and the conditions on the house, and I'll go into the conditions in a little bit later, but this was done like in the middle of the night, so we didn't have a chance to consult with the mortgage broker or things of that nature. So it's late at night. They're like, we're gonna put the house back on the market at midnight. You can get a deal now if you make us a fair offer. We think that we can get this and that, and I ended up getting the price that I wanted, but I also didn't want to put I wanted to put a financing condition on the house, and they didn't want to, and they wanted more money. So we ended up settling on the price that I wanted, but at the same time, with no conditions. So I went into a firm deal, which I'm going to explain to you guys a little bit more in depth. That was kind of our common ground where we settled on. So a few weeks later, I get a call from my mortgage broker, and he's telling me like, hey, all these banks are now coming out with a decline for your new property. And I'm hearing that, it's a couple weeks from closing, and I'm thinking like, what the heck is going on? And a lot of this, guys, it's like a lot of humility on my side, because I kind of, I want to obviously talk, not necessarily talk a big game, but I'm out here. I want to show you guys, that I know what I'm doing and things of that nature. But I also make mistakes, and I'm very thankful for those mistakes, and I learn from those mistakes. But I kind of come out and they say it's been declined, and I was kind of surprised, because I was like, my profile is good and everything like that. And he's like, yeah, like it's not a problem with your credit. It's not a problem with the money that you have or your profile. It's a problem with the house. That's the real issue. The bank. So when you're looking for a mortgage from the bank, they're going to do their own appraisal, and it needs to be insured. And if no one wants to insure the mortgage, then the bank is not going to be willing to do it. The bank has to deem for the house to be livable. And keep in mind, I told you, right, like it was a house that they had started doing the flip. And although, you could clearly tell that like some things had been taken out because they're being renovated, and it's simple to kind of put them back in. Since it was mid flip, it was deemed unlivable. And that's why essentially the pre-approval the approval got declined, even though I had my pre-approval in place. So that brings us into lesson number 2, which is your pre-approval is never a guarantee. Right? Like there's so many things that can happen in your pre-approval, not only with the house alone, but also if for yourself, let's say there's something that you don't remember on your credit, like maybe you have this gym membership that he had opened, years ago that was never closed, that wasn't disclosed to your mortgage broker at the time, and that's been lingering around. You never know. So never go into these deals thinking like you're too firm. You have no idea what can ever happen, and that's something that my mortgage broker. By the way, my mortgage broker is a decent friend of mine. We're pretty close, and we've done a lot of deals together, and we're going to continue doing a lot of deals together. But he had told me initially, where he's like, you can never think that you're too firm or that your profile is too good. You always want to account, but like the more experience you have, obviously, the more you're going to find out, okay, if I do this, I'll be okay, and I'll be able to get through this. So in this situation, I can put in a firm offer. In this situation, I can't. So keep those things in mind. Just be aware that like your offer can never be too firm, and the pre-approval is not guaranteed. Once again, like the issue wasn't in this situation with my profile. So guys, I do have good credit. I'm not broke, promise. It was with the home that I was trying to buy, and where it was at. And yeah, so just trying to cipher through my notes here, but yeah, so since some things had been taken apart, like that's why essentially the bank came out and was like, no, we're not going to insure this home because it's not something. Yeah, so when you're getting a home from the bank, a mortgage from the bank, you have to go in with the mindset of like they want to know that you're gonna have this as your primary property, and if it's mid flip, this looks like an investment property and the bank is not going to be willing to loan you the money more often than not. So unfortunately, like I would honestly say that this is something that my realtor should have known when we visited the place and uh, and when we decided to put in the offer. Now, I'm not here to badmouth that realtor specifically, but as a lesson number three here for you guys, it is to pick your team very, very carefully. Um, your realtor, I want to say this as nice as possible because I don't think that that realtor had any bad intentions. My goal, and I'm not going to share, their name, their information, or anything like that. But it's just, I think that it was a mishap. I think that like they missed the mark to some extent a little bit in this situation, and that's okay. Like the mistakes happen, but in this situation, I was the one that had to pay for it, which obviously didn't make me very happy in that situation. But you guys need to understand as a lesson, your realtors need to be aware of those things, right? So you have to think your realtor are really there to represent you. So you don't pay your realtor. Your realtor get paid almost 2% of whatever closing price you end up paying on the home. And you're not paying that just for them to find you a couple of homes. That's a simple Google search. You can do that yourself. You're paying them for them to represent you, for them to recommend you to put in the right offer, whatever it may be. That's why you're paying your realtor for, and you need to make sure that you have a good team around you, from your mortgage broker, from your realtor, and all of that. So I think that I got a little too complacent. I kind of forgot the role of my realtor. I wasn't necessarily asking enough questions, and yeah, I just kind of got to a point where I was like, oh, you can just pick any realtor. As long as she sends me a couple places, I'm good to go, and I'm gonna keep, I'm gonna just put in the offer or whatever. And I take that on me, but like from a knowledge of the place not being in good condition, I think that that's completely on me. I'm just letting you guys know as you guys get started with your real estate journey. Those are the things that you need to be aware of, and those are the things that realtors are supposed to protect you against. So, your realtor should know that a halfway done home, a home that like has half of the stuff taken apart, is not going to qualify for a bank mortgage right off the bat. So just make sure like those are the kind of questions you want to go in asking. And I'm going to make a full episode around, what kind of questions you want to ask your real estate professionals and your financial professionals in general as you get started like in your journey. But this is actually the perfect time as a subtle plug to tell you guys to subscribe to my podcast because that kind of information and that kind of content is coming soon, but I think that it's important just for you to be aware that you need to ask questions. Don't just go in there and ask blindly. Try to get referrals, try to ask good questions. Anything that's left unclear, whenever you get like shaky answers or answers that don't explain what people kind of ramble on and answer around the question, see that as a red flag and know to step away because you want to be best represented. It's not your job to know about all these laws and all these rules that are in the real estate game. It's their job and that's what you're paying them for. So just have that understanding. So yeah, once again, do subscribe to the podcast. Thanks. Let's keep it moving. It actually get better than this. Like it gets a lot more interesting. So you would think that like at this point I'm like almost out the water. It's like, okay, I made a mistake. My bad. But I actually had a conversation with my mortgage broker. And like I said, we've gotten pretty close and he suggested I get out of the deal. But I wasn't really aware of, the implications of that, of pretty much anything in this deal. Yeah, I've never experienced this. Every deal I've ever I offered to so far, I was able to close. Everything went somewhat smoothly. I had some challenges with some of my other deals, but every time I put in an offer, I was able to close the deal somewhat on time. So I had a 1 week delay once, and it cost me like $300, and life goes on. So outside of that, it's been really, really smooth. So I never experienced that. So I was like, okay, well, what are the implications here? And when you put in an offer, you have to put on a deposit, right? So I'd only put down a $5,000 deposit. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, worst case scenario, I pull out of this deal, I lose this $5,000. It sucks a little bit, but I'll be fine. I'll be able to bounce back from that. It's actually easier than that. But that brings us to lesson number four, okay? Lesson number four. Sorry about that. If you put down a firm offer, which means with no condition, it actually means that you're going to close this deal no matter what happens. Rain, shine, whatever happens, you are going to close this deal. You're going to find a way to close this deal. That's essentially what you're telling to the seller when you put down the firm offer. So there's different things that different conditions you can put in, right? Like you can put an appraisal condition, meaning that, well, if the appraisal comes out, if there's an appraisal that comes to the house and says, let's say you put in an offer for $375,000 and the appraisal comes down, it comes out at like $330,000. Well, then the house is actually worth less than what you're offering, and you can pull out of the deal. There's a financing condition, which we spoke about earlier, right? Like if anything goes wrong with your financing, if the bank declines, if there was something on your profile that was there before that you weren't aware about, you can pull out of you can pull out of the deal. So all those things are great because they give you the ability to pull out if it's no longer a good deal. When you put in no condition, you're saying once again, I'm gonna find a way to close this. If everybody says no, I'm liable for this, and this house at that point, once you sign on the dotted line, now becomes a liability. Now, in this market, right, like the real estate market is extremely competitive, whether you're talking about Canada or the United States, it's the same thing. It's extremely competitive. So you're looking at a lot of times people are putting in these blind bids where they're not allowing you to see what people are offering and things like that, and they won't even consider your offer unless it's a firm offer. So it puts the buyer at a real disadvantage, but you kind of have to know how to decipher through that, and that's why a big reason you don't ever want to buy real estate in a rush, and you always want to be in a position to walk away from the deal, which I kind of did for a moment where I was like, you know what, at some point when we were in the middle of the negotiation, I was like, you know what, like I'm walking away, this is my best offer. And then they came back and they're like, hey, listen, if as long as you take the conditions away, you can have that price. But obviously it still didn't work out for us. So this no condition, what this means in the event you were to not close, it means that essentially, let's say the close doesn't go through, the financing doesn't happen. I'm like, whatever. You can keep my deposit. I'm not purchasing the home. What the seller can do is they can put the house back up for sale in the market, sell it for less, and then sue you for the remainder, for that balance, the legal fees, plus any costs associated with it. An example here, let's say once again we go back to that purchase price of $375,000. The house doesn't go through, the deal doesn't go through. They decide to put the house back on the market and they sell it for $300,000. Now they're suing you for that $75,000 plus any legal fees that were incurred in order to come after you. Plus, on top of that, if there was a delay in the closing, if they expected you to close on, let's say December 1st, but now it's closing, their new closing date is January 1st, they can sue you for any fees that incurred there. So you can now be hit with $100,000 bill for a house that you don't even own. And that can really cripple you for a very long time, for like, not only from a real estate standpoint, but like a financial standpoint in the long run. That's how people file for bankruptcies and all that nature. So be mindful, take my mistakes as a lesson for you. Obviously, I'm still here, I'm still okay, but it's a very valuable lesson that I learned, and I was able, like, and we'll speak about next steps because it actually gets even worse before it gets better. So let's stick to this, for a hot second. Okay, so I thought that I absolutely had to close this deal, right? My broker and I started looking at private mortgage. Those are extremely expensive. They come with a lot of fees. If you're not aware of that, that's one thing to keep in mind. If you're not doing a mortgage with the bank, with one of those A lenders, is what we call them. You can go the route of getting private money. These are basically just very rich individuals that have a large amount of money. They open their own private cabinet, I guess, and they lend you money, whatever, and they can charge you whatever they want on that money. So we started looking at those, and my realtor started speaking to the selling realtor, and they put me in touch with their mortgage broker on their side. And we get on the call, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I can absolutely close the deal." Now I'm trying to explain to her the situation, which is like, my profile is fine, but here's the situation with the house. She's like, "Yep, I can take care of it." And I kept asking, like, how are you gonna do this? How are we gonna do that? How are we getting through this deal? And the only thing that she would say to me is, no, I got it. I'll take care of it. Now, I'm in a bad spot. Like, you have to keep in mind at this point, I'm barely sleeping. Every day I'm stressing over this deal because I'm like, how is this going to happen? I could be on the hook for all this, all that. And she's like, yep, I'm gonna make it happen. I got some connections. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. I've heard it all. And that's where I made one of the biggest mistakes in this whole thing, which was leaving the mortgage broker that I knew and trusted to join this lady that was telling me, like, yep, I got it. I'll take care of you, without really telling me how she's going to take care of me. So that was uh, it was a very emotional decision, and I kind of pride myself in not making emotional decisions most of the time. But in this situation, I have to swallow my pride and just be like, I messed up big time, and that's how I find myself in even worse of a pickle than I was. So I decided to go work with this lady, and like I said, at this point, I'm just swinging for the fences. Like, I'm just throwing Hail Marys because I'm like, I got to try anything and anybody that will give me a little glimpse of hope. Even though my mortgage broker, he knew my whole profile. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've closed multiple deals together. So he knew exactly like where I was, what the whole situation was. And this lady that knew basically nothing about me was like, yeah, I'll take care of it. I can close any deal. And I'm like, how are you going to do it? And I'm trying to get an explanation for it because I'm like, if I'm going to leave somebody that knows my whole profile, I need to know that you're actually going to take care of me. And she's like, yeah, I got this. And I'm like, all right, cool. Bam, I threw that Hail Mary, right? I tried to swing for the fences. I tried out. Please, guys, do not ever do that. Do not, in the middle of a deal, leave a mortgage broker that knows your whole profile to go to somebody that will not answer all your questions, and not, because she was kind of like just blowing me off every single time I would ask, those kind of questions. I was talking about, just leaving somebody that you trust, basically, for somebody that you barely know. This real estate game, especially if you're going to do it for the long run, if you're going to be an investor and for a very long time, make sure that you build relationships. Make sure you can find people that you can know, trust, and that you're going to be in, that are going to be along with you with the ride for the long run. It's going to pay dividend long term. But yeah, please don't make the mistakes I made here. Essentially, like, I was right, and she wasn't really listening to me, and that's what I suspected initially, because I really felt like she was just kind of blowing me off and was like, yeah, I'm busy, like, but I'll take care of you, and she wasn't really listening. And then she came back at me, and and a lot of stuff happened, and closing day came around, and she was like, okay, well, closing day is not working out. I just got a decline from this place. We need to go to this place. And now we're looking at private mortgages, once again, are super expensive. But now I'm so far in it that I have to go the private mortgage route, right? And then she's just piling up money on top of it. And I'd planned to put a certain amount of money down on this place, and she just kept asking me for more cash and more cash and more cash. So I was just coming up with more cash that I didn't plan on spending on this deal specifically. And I came up with it, but we were still coming up with more mortgages and more mortgages. So she was just piling up mortgage on top of mortgage, which isn't necessarily allowed. And that's what another issue came through, because she made me leave my lawyer, because in order for this to go through, it was a little bit of a backdoor deal, where, if I got a second mortgage, my first mortgage wouldn't give me the deal, but I needed to get the second mortgage in order to close the deal. So basically, she made me leave my lawyer because her lawyer would do it for her, and then on top of that, then the appraisal came out low. So she was getting another third mortgage on top of that. And I was like, oh, hold on. And these mortgages, keep in mind, like they're varying from like 10 to 20, like up to, I think one of them was like 25% of interest, which is like, it doesn't make sense if you're thinking about like rate of returns. So for me to make any money, I have to get at least 20% return on this home just for me to break even. That's starting to not make sense. And I'm like looking at this, I'm like, this is like terrible. Like, so now I'm gonna be on the hook to close on this house. That just makes sense. And keep in mind, like this whole time, every single time she's setting up a mortgage, she's asking me to put, retainers down or whatever. And we're talking about like thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars at the time that I'm just like shooting her way. That she's just like, oh, it's a retainer here, and then this person comes back, cancels it. I'm like, where's my retainer and all this stuff? So I'm losing money by the day at this point. I'm like, yo, this is an endless money pit, and at this point, I also still have to do renovations in the house. I'm like, how am I gonna have enough money to do renovations if you're just emptying of my money? And like, how does this still make sense? Anyway, I'm ranting at this point, but you can just tell that I'm still going back through the experience now, like retelling it to you guys. I'm getting frustrated again, but anyway, I got love in my heart. I'm a forgiving person. I'm trying to work on that. So that's what's going on. So I left my lawyer. So let's talk about this for a second, right? So I left my lawyer. I spoke about this a little bit ago, meaning that now I'm represented. My mortgage broker is the seller's broker, which means that she's just trying to close the deal at all costs. My realtor is trying to close the deal at all costs. And my lawyer was referred to me because the realtor only gets paid when the deal closes. And my lawyer was referred to me by my mortgage broker. So you can see the chain of events, which is a whole bunch of people basically that are representative of the seller, and I have like no real representation that has my best interest at heart. It's all these group of people that are like, we need to close this deal for this other person, which is not me, right? And so no one really has my best interest at heart. And I'm like, okay, like what's going on? So all this has happened, and the close has already been delayed about 4 times. And basically the day where the close was supposed to happen, I decided to call my friend, my broker, my initial broker. And I'm like, hey, here's what's happening right now. It's just insane. They're just keep adding fees on top of fees. And he's like, basically he tells me, listen, you need to force yourself out of this deal. I've been trying to be nice this whole time, like trying to be respectful of these people. You need to walk in there and put your foot down and say, you know what, you guys all, you guys don't have my best interest at heart. I'm pulling out of the deal. If you want to sue me, and I'll figure that out later. Because a lot of people won't actually sue you because it's a big hassle. Even though they might get their money back, it takes so long. They have to take so many steps. They might as well just, go back and sell the house, put the house on the market. So I'm on my way to my lawyer's office, with my plan in mind. I tell my lawyer, and homie is like, nah, that won't work. He's like, you can't, you don't have the right, you don't have enough information in order, you're not in a position of power, basically, because they can hold you down to all this. So I'm in there. I take a work day out and all that, and I'm like, listen, either way, do what y'all want. Y'all can sue me, but I'm pulling out of this deal. Like, this is not making any sense. This would be financial suicide for me. I'm not doing this. Like, that makes no sense. So I'm lucky enough. The lawyer sends a little letter to the seller. The seller actually agrees to let me out of the deal. I have to, forfeit my deposit plus send them an extra little amount of money. I'm like, okay, I'm willing to take that loss. Now, the broker comes back in and is like, well, we put in all this work. You owe us this money. And I'm like, no, no, no. I paid you in order to close this deal, but this deal didn't close, which was on you because I was telling you about all this stuff right off the bat. Now, she tried to flip it on me. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm trying here not to bash anybody, but she tried to flip it on me and was like, no, your profile was not this, was not that. I didn't know the condition of the home. And I'm like, but that's what I was trying to explain to you. And that's why I was like, what are you gonna do different than my current broker? Because he knows all of this and you wouldn't listen to me. And basically when she tried to flip that on me, that's when I lost it completely. I'm like, okay, I'm out. Because I asked the lawyer, I'm like, what am I liable to pay these people? Like, that's what I want to understand. And the answer, guys, is nothing. I smacked my mic again, where I promised I wouldn't do that again. But the answer is nothing. You're not responsible to paying a broker for a deal that they didn't close. So keep that in mind if you guys ever do that. So I asked my lawyer, and he's like, no, 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 you need to work with her, blah, blah, because they're best friends. I think they were family, actually. So I walk out, and I call a different lawyer, and I'm like, I need my own representation. I need somebody that... So I basically spent a whole workday in this lawyer's office. He's going through all my emails, all the chain of communication, all this, all that. He's like, there are so many conflicts of interest here. And I'm winding down, guy. I'm almost done, I promise. He's like, there's so many conflicts of interest here. It's ridiculous. You got bamboozled, basically. So I take my L and all this, all that. Like, guys, once again, please do subscribe to this podcast because I'm out here taking L's for you guys so you guys can go into this equipped with all these lessons. I'm actually really passionate about this because, I love that this mistake happened to me. Like, I'm really passionate because as I was going through it, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, there's so many teaching moments here. So all you got to do here is click a button. And I already went through the bad stuff. So yeah, just do that for me. Thank you. But basically, we now entered a bunch of lawsuits. Don't worry, everything that I shared here is information that I verified with my lawyer that was okay to share. So that's that. But we're basically in the midst of a bunch of lawsuits. So hopefully I can recover some of the funds that I lost over the course of this. But even if I don't, to be honest, I'm be okay with that because in conclusion, and I'll finish this here. Personally, financially, I'm okay, right? Like, I didn't lose all my money. I wasn't necessarily on the hook for all my money. But at the same time, it was still a very stressful situation. No one ever wants to lose money, but I think that most of the people that I know of that have been in real estate, they'll tell you that they've taken losses in real estate. And it has to come at some point, and it's an excellent teaching moment. So I'm actually very, very thankful. So yeah, I lost a little dollar bill, but the lesson that I learned along the way, I think is way more valuable than the money that I lost during that time. And those are things that I'll be able to teach other people. I've already started with some of my close friends that are looking to play this real estate game, at sharing that. And I will sharing that with the audience here and hoping to share that with even more people. I don't know why I'm stuttering now. But listen, I will bounce back. I'll bounce back even better, even stronger. This only gave me more motivation to just go harder. I already started looking at more deals. I'm actually out. And I'm going to throw a couple offers in. It's been hard, to be honest. Like, there's less and less inventory and the price is higher and higher. But at the same time, I'm continuing to fight, and, I haven't lost any motivation. I still have, very high ambitions, and, I'm not stopping. At first, when this whole went down, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give myself till the end of the year. I'm gonna stop, and then I think like a week went by, and I was just like, I'm back, and I was looking at different deals and trying to find out if I can purchase another one. So let's wrap this one up for today with the key takeaways. As y'all can see in the title of this, there's 6 key takeaways that I want you to walk away with as you start your investing journey, if you want to go into real estate. And number 1, do not try to buy real estate in a rush, right? We spoke about this at the beginning. Always have leverage to be able to walk away from a deal. So don't go into, dang, like my lease is ending at the end of this month. I need a place to live. I'm going to try to buy a house. Don't do that. Number 2, a pre-approval is not guaranteed. Be careful when you're submitting firm offers. Just make sure you only have, you have given all the information to your broker. Make sure that as much as you can find, monitor your credit. That's one of the really important things. And everything, if don't look at I have this credit card debt. I'm not going to tell them about it because I want it to look good for the pre-approval. It's only going to come back to bite you in the end. So share as much information with them as possible. But also make sure that you've done your due diligence on the home. Is it in good condition? What are the comps in the area? And this is honestly work that you're paying your realtors to do for you. When you're thinking about putting an offer on a home, look at what homes in the area are selling. Okay, what condition are the other homes? What is the resale value? I think Grant Cardone said that he always buys real estate with the mindset of what can I sell this for? And really have that mindset as well. What can I sell this house for in this neighborhood and whatever. So that's one of the most important things when you go into this. Lesson number 3, pick your team very carefully. Ask a lot of questions. Get a referral. Obviously, there's an episode coming to talk about the questions that you should ask. And even when you're asking a referral, I'm going to be speaking about that. So make sure you are, once again, subscribed and you're tuned into the podcast. But any red flags or concerns that you have when you're speaking to them, they're probably valid and they're probably a sign for you to walk away. Even if you're like, well, I just don't know enough, but they're making you feel like you're just stupid for having these questions or whatever, walk away, right? Your questions should be answered at all times. So make sure you keep that in mind. They got to just make you feel comfortable overall. Number 4, understand the implications of a firm offer, right? You're now aware that it does, you do take on that liability as soon as you sign that piece of paper when you put in a firm offer. Number 5, one thing that saved me, don't pay any money without a paper trail. Always have an invoice, always have receipts. Multiple times these people were asking me or e-transfer me, which if you're in the US, that's the equivalent of basically Venmoing someone. They were asking me to send me to just quick cash app them some money and things like that, and large sums of money. And I was like, no, I need an invoice for that. I'm happy to send it, but I want to do a wire transfer, things of that nature. So don't send any money to anyone without a paper trail, without something that you can track. And number 6, consider incorporating. One thing that I'm actually in the process of doing now is incorporating because I want to continue purchasing real estate, obviously. But in this situation, I was risking all of my assets. So if you're going to do a lot of deals, look into that. If you want to have kind of real estate as a business, as one of your side hustles, you want to consider that. It might not be right for you, but maybe it is. So just think about it. I might do another episode on that. I'll probably have some professional on to talk about that. Actually, for the questions to ask to a professional, I will also have a professional on for that episode. But yeah, consider incorporating because here I was risking all my assets. That 100K lawsuit that I was facing. A lot of people, when they are incorporated, what they can just do is, close that business, take the lawsuit and bankrupt the business and then open another one. In this situation, they could have come after all my other homes. They could have come after all my other assets, right? Like any kind of stocks, investment, crypto. They can come after my paycheck at work and all these different things. So consider incorporating if you're going to do. Once again, I'm not telling you to incorporate. I'm telling you to consider it. Keep that in the back of your mind if you're going to do a lot of real estate deals. But anyway, we've been here long enough. So let me know in the comments if you learned something. If you think that I'm completely ridiculous and I should have known that, let me know in the comments as well. But if you find today valuable, please do make sure to share that with somebody else. That is the only way that this platform grows, and I'm looking to grow my platform. That is really the only way that I'll be able to do that. But make sure you like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, all that good stuff. Check us out on all podcasting platform, on YouTube, and all of that good stuff. But for today, as always, make sure that you're taking the steps today to ensure that you're 1% closer to your goals than you were yesterday. Have a great day, everybody. Great to have you.